The Scooby-Doo franchise is a franchise that has endured for more than 50 years at this point, coming with a number of movies and spin-offs involving Scooby-Doo and the gang. Now, the latest iteration, Velma, appears on HBO Max, and how is it? I will not mince words with you, this is honestly not a good product. It's not a good Scooby-Doo product, it's not a good product on its own, it's really not good, and I'm going to go into the reasons why it's not good. With Velma being in the title of the show, naturally the show revolves around her. But the problem is, Velma is the worst main character I think I've ever seen or watched in an animated series ever. She is just generally awful to everyone around her. It's just despicable. And the problem is that she doesn't even learn her lessons. She's awful in one episode, she learns her lesson at the end of it, then the next episode, she goes right back to being awful. All 10 episodes are like this, even at the end. It's just, how can you watch a show when the main character is just someone you don't want to root for? I actively looked for the scenes where she wasn't in it, so I can have at least a little bit of enjoyment, but she's just awful when she's in it.
I'm a suspect? I thought lesbians were good at solving crimes. It's like the one positive stereotype perpetuated by cop shit.
The rest of the ensemble cast tends to vary in quality. Fred, Norville, or Shaggy for the oldies, and Daphne all have a few redeeming qualities in addition to the rather nonsensical quirks that they have, and Velma's kinda sorta stepmom Sophie is also pretty wonderful, but most of the other characters just are nothing to talk about. Her father is awful, the sheriff is useless, the mayor is incompetent, and most of the other characters just run by stereotypes of just awful to be around. The problem is, Velma doesn't really have a good cast. The main cast of characters aren't really all that great, and the ensemble cast of characters aren't really all that great. So now you're watching a show full of a bunch of people you don't really want to watch, and that leads into a ton of other problems when it comes to the plot. The main plot of Velma mostly revolves around the disappearance of Nia Dinkley, Velma's mother, and also the serial killers of hot girls who have their brains removed. It's a rather interesting tale, I think, but the problem is there are way too many plot lines going on in Velma, so that honestly, sometimes it becomes an afterthought. The biggest plot line which I think really hinders the show is the love triangle going on between Velma and the other ensembles of the gang. Throughout the course of the season, Norville, Fred, and Daphne all develop feelings for Velma, which is laughable considering she's awful to all of them, and it becomes such a big thing that by the end of the season, they're all on awful terms with each other. It doesn't really help there are so many other plot lines that either just weren't necessary, like Sophie's pregnancy, or stuff that just kind of make things weird, like the whole episode where the hot girls had to have bodyguards, that by the time we got to the murders and actually resolved the whole thing, it kind of just felt like, this happened. Now let's move on to season 2, if we're gonna get that.
That's why I'm so confused about Daphne. Sure, she was my first kiss, but whenever I used to make out with my hand, I called it Fred.
Now let's take a look at the jokes that were done in Velma, but to be honest, it's more accurate to say that the humor attempted in Velma was the real joke. To be honest, this show is really not that funny. There is too much over-reliance on meta-humor. The first episode alone has a number of references to real-life meta-humor instincts and all that stuff, and it gets old too fast. And they keep doing it through all the course of the episodes. So by the time we get to episode 10, I found it hard to really laugh at anything they attempted, because it was just the same old, same old.
Yes, of course. Though I left you some other VMs, voicemail.
I know what VMs are! Get to the point!
I already did, in my VMs.
Now, despite the many, many criticisms that Velma rightfully deserves, there are a few good points I can point out here. First is that the animation and OST are pretty stellar. The voice acting is on point with a number of good industry veterans coming in to voice the various Scooby-Doo and ensemble characters. In addition, the animation for Velma's hallucinations are actually very vivid. The imagery that's used to display the kind of mental stress she's going through is actually astounding. Secondly, while I still stand by the fact that the meta-humor in the show is just cringeworthy and awful, there are generally a few good jokes in here. They mainly involve Fred and Norville, but honestly, there are a few moments that have me laughing out loud. Lastly, while I still stand by the fact that Velma's character arc was pathetic and non-existent, the character arcs for Daphne, Fred, and Norville were actually pretty good. In the beginning of the show, Fred was frankly a Chad boy, or Chad dude, whatever you want to call him. But towards the end of the series, he actually became a very upstanding young man. Norville learned that he's more than just toxic friendships and moved past that, and Daphne wanted to learn about her real family and eventually coming to terms with what they really were and who her real family actually is was very heartwarming.
ads.
Thank you. But if the kids in every teen show ever can get through a brush with a deranged serial killer, so can I.
Overall, while I could acknowledge that Velma might get a bit of praise for some of its animation and voice acting, and a few good character arcs, Velma as a whole is not a quality product. I cannot recommend watching it for anybody. It's very much a disgraceful taste of television for Scooby-Doo, and it's very much a disgrace for HBO Max itself. I don't know what Mindy Kaling was thinking with this show, but since she was the executive producer, this has her name on it, and this has her taste on it. And honestly, this show has already been renewed for a second season, and it was done so before the first season even aired, so I don't think any of the criticisms that Velma rightfully had will go into the production of the second season, so I'm not hopeful for that either. But if you're the kind of person who wants to sit down and waste your time with mediocre television, by all means give this a watch. Otherwise, please watch anything else. Watch Be Cool Scooby-Doo, watch Mystery Inc. Incorporated, A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. Something of Scooby-Doo relation that's way better than this is something you want to watch.
Whoa, I feel funny. Did they drug our food again?
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, try to give a like or leave a comment. If you didn't like what you saw, try to leave me some feedback to see in ways I can improve. Thank you. Have a nice day.